In this video, I'm going to show you why paying cash for your car at a car dealership may cost you more money, not less. I'm also going to pull back the curtain and show you all 14 ways a car dealership makes money on you during the sales process. And if you're average, you're paying for all 14 of these. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
So you buy your Consumer Reports car report, and it outlines the manufacturer's invoice price, the price that the manufacturer charges the car dealership for the car. And you walk into your favorite car dealership and you negotiate for over an hour, and you get the salesman or saleswoman, salesperson, I suppose, to within $50 of the manufacturer's invoice, and you feel like you've won. The salesman even says that they're basically losing money on the sale. But the reality is you've lost. You've lost badly. Here's why. Let me start out by saying that Consumer Reports car report isn't some super secret document. The automobile company has already read it. In fact, their analysts have already analyzed it. In fact, not only do they have the data from the Consumer Reports report, they also have the Edmunds report, the Kelley Blue Book report, the True Car report, and the J.D. Power report. All of these reports show what's basically publicly available. And in fact, in this video, I'm going to show you how I got some of the data we're going to talk about here, which is publicly available. But what these reports don't have is the private financial arrangement that the car manufacturer has made with the retail establishment, the retail stores. And that information isn't available anywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, having a consumer report gives you a slight advantage over someone who doesn't have it, simply because at least you know what the manufacturer's cost is. Most people walking into a dealership have something in their mind, and if they hit that number, they're okay, even if that number doesn't really represent the maximum amount of value the customer could have gotten. So with that report in hand, you can see what the gross profit is on the car. That's simply the price that you paid minus the manufacturer's invoice to the car dealership. So if, for example, the retail price for the car is $32,250 and the manufacturer's invoice is $29,900, if you got it for $29,950, they would have only made $50 in gross profit. That would have been an exceptional outcome, by the way, had you not watched this video. But the visible profit is the only thing that you see. Everything else is kept private. Of course, I'm going to tell you what those are and the approximate value of them. There's an additional profit layer that you don't see. It's called a front-end profit layer. It actually has a name, and this is an additional payment or series of payments that the manufacturer pays to the dealership. The first is what's called the dealer holdback. That's money the manufacturer sends back to the dealer after the sale, and it's usually 2 to 3% of the list price. So if the list price was $32,000 and the dealer had a 2% holdback, which would be on the low end, then the car company would send the dealer an extra $640. If the holdback was 3%, the car company would send the dealership an extra $960. So you think that you got them to within $50, but line item number 1 already shows that they made 12 times, at least 12 times that profit. But we're not nearly done yet. The next line item is called a dealer cash incentive. And this is just extra money that the car company pays to the dealership to sell certain automobiles. If a car company made too many models of a certain car and they couldn't sell it, well, they would give the dealership an incentive to sell that car versus other cars. The next profit item is what's called a volume or stair-step bonus. And this basically means that if a dealership can sell enough cars, they get an additional cash bonus. The more they sell, the bigger the bonus. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons that prices drop, or at least dealerships become more flexible at month end and quarter end, because they're trying to hit this particular bonus. Next is what's called a regional dealer-only rebate. Now, this rebate is available under certain circumstances. If a region isn't doing so well, if the competition is too difficult, if there are other reasons why that region is struggling, well, the car company might come in and offer an additional incentive to the dealership to sell more cars. And the final one on the front end, and we're not nearly done yet, is what's called floor plan assistance. Basically, that means that when a dealership takes inventory of a car, they have to pay for the car. And they usually do that with a loan. Well, the loan has an interest rate, and floor plan assistance means that the car company will help them with the interest on that loan. Now, the final category from the car company to the car dealer is what's called a back-end incentive program. And these equate to things that don't necessarily equate to the number of cars sold, at least directly, but they equate to customer satisfaction or brand protection. That's a good one, where basically you're not doing anything to sully the name of the car company. Anyway, the point is that this is another way for the car company to give money to the car dealerships. Now, here's the really scary part. Even if you could actually figure out how to calculate the profit on all of these and use that in your negotiation, that's not where the real money is made. The real money is made in the finance manager's office. Let me give you the data, and I'll tell you exactly where I got it. You can get it there too. There are a number of car dealerships, car stores, that don't have one or two stores. They might have 300 or 400 stores, and these companies finance themselves a little bit differently. They'll sell shares to the open public. They're publicly traded. You could call up your brokerage firm today, Charles Schwab or whoever, and say, I want to buy 1,000 shares of AutoNation or Lithium Motors. These are publicly traded companies, so they have investors. And because they have investors, they have to provide detailed information about how they make money and the expenses that they pay. And the information that we used came from looking at the financial statements of Lithium Motors, which operates 324 retail dealerships in the U.S. alone and more than 450 worldwide, AutoNation, which has over 300 dealerships, and Penske, which has over 200 dealerships. Now, here's how much money these publicly traded car dealerships makes on average per car. A new car's gross profit, which is the price you pay less the manufacturer's invoice, is $3,263. A used car gross profit, that's again the price you pay minus the price that they paid to acquire that car, is $2,084 per car. Now, gross profit is an interesting number. It's very useful. It tells you how much they made per car before paying their bills, their other expenses outside of the car company. But you need to subtract the other expenses because they have to pay their rent, they have to pay for the person at the front desk, et cetera, et cetera. These are what are called SG&A expenses, selling, general, and administrative expenses. And when you subtract that all out, the per car profit drops to between $500 and $1,200, depending on the financial statements that we looked at. A much smaller number. So that's why I said if you got them down to within $50 of the manufacturer's invoice, you had a really good deal. But we're not done yet. In fact, we're not even at the most profitable point of the process. The real profit is made after the price is locked in. It's in the finance manager's office. And this is super important because most people let their guard down when they walk in there, and that's where all of the real money is made. Let me explain. Gang, I've got a question for you. How prepared are you for retirement really? If you're like most people, you think you are far more prepared than you really are. So I invite you to take my free quiz, receive my free report, no credit card or anything like that required. It's a 15-question quiz that rates you in 12 different pillars of retirement. And once you finish the quiz, we will send you a 12-page report instantly. If you're interested, go to holyschmidt.com/quiz and you can check it out yourself. From the same financial statements, we also got how much these dealerships make in the finance manager's office. There's something called finance and insurance, F&I. That's $2,011. And documentation profit, this is profit, is $700 to $800 per car. So the finance manager's office adds an additional $2,000 to $2,800 profit. That's on top of the $500 to $1,200 profit they made from the car itself. So let's break these down line by line. The first is something called a loan reserve. It's the interest markup. So when you pay interest on your car, the amount that you pay is determined by the minimum that you have to pay, and that's what the loan provider insists upon, and something called a loan reserve. It's a nice name, but basically it's the amount that they mark up your interest rate. So if you're supposed to get it for 4 and they mark up to 5, that 1% is profit. And that amounts to $600 to $800 per car for the car dealership. Then there's the extended warranty, and that's the one that nobody's really sure what's covered, but it sounds really good because they list a lot of things that are covered, but they don't tell you what's not covered. And the profit on an extended warranty is somewhere between $700 and $1,000. Then there's something that's called gap insurance. I actually don't think that this is a bad one, to be completely frank, if you have a loan on your car. But sometimes when you take out a loan and something happens to your car, if it gets totaled, then the amount that the insurance company is willing to pay for that car and the amount that you have on loan is different. The loan is higher. That difference is called a gap. And so you can pay for insurance for gap insurance. The profit on gap insurance is between $250 and $400. Then there are protection and add-on products like wheel protection or car mats, that sort of thing. Profit on that's pretty small. It's between $0 and $300. So the total blended F&I on the financial statements anyway is somewhere between $1,900 and $2,100 per car in the finance manager's office. But you're not done yet. You also have to pay for paperwork. There's $700 to $800 of profit built into the paperwork. There's something called a processing fee or a documentation fee. That's the fee you pay for them to type everything into their computer, print it out, and hand it to you to sign. That's between $400 and $650 profit. And then there's something called electronic filing or registration markup. That's basically the act of applying for your first vehicle license. They make between $40 and $90 for doing that. That's profit on top of whatever they charge you. Then there's the temporary tag. It's the piece of paper that you put on your dash until your plates arrive. They make between $20 and $50 on that. Then there's the notary, digital contracting. Basically, someone has to notarize your signature. That's between $10 and $30 profit. So typical net profit on paperwork is $700 to $800. So when you combine F&I profit alone and paperwork profit alone, the car dealership makes between $2,700 and $2,900 per car. And that's before the most profitable part of a car dealership, and that's the service center. And frankly, a lot of that is covered by warranty. That doesn't mean that the service center does it for free. It means that the car company is paying them if something needs servicing. If they sell a car that has a 12-month service check, a 24-month service check, etc., and it's free, it's not really a fee. You pay for it in the price, and the car company just pays the dealership for doing the work for you. But note that all of the numbers that I just gave you are not the entire picture. The important part to take away here is that the service center is extremely profitable, and a lot of the things that you might get upsold on later you don't actually need. But regardless of whether you're paying for it or it's provided by the car company, they make a lot of money in the service center. Now here's the problem for cash buyers in this situation. If you walk in and announce that you're a cash buyer and that you want their best price and you're paying cash, as you can see, that is an extreme disincentive. They could lose out on $1,000, $2,000, maybe more. And so they're going to make sure that that profit on the car, on the sales price of the car, is higher. Paying cash for your car isn't the same thing as paying cash for someone who does work on your home, for example. In fact, you don't even really want to know why they want to get paid cash or they give you such a discount, but the answer is obvious. That doesn't work the same way at a car dealership. Cash is bad. And interestingly, all of those fees that happened in the finance manager's office, the one fee that isn't charged, at least a lot of the time, maybe most of the time, is what's called an origination fee or a loan fee. Why? Because they don't want you to pay cash or finance that car outside of the dealership to a financial institution that will provide you the loan for free, because the money isn't in the upfront fee, it's in the monthly payments. Now, a lot of people will say at this point, well, what if I don't tell them whether I'm paying cash or not? Keep them guessing. Well, there are a series of tests that they will execute during the process. And the willingness for them to be flexible on price will come down to how well you pass those tests. And most people don't even know that they're being tested. Test number one happens before you even meet the salesperson in many cases. It's when the person at the front desk greets you and you say, I want to talk to somebody about buying a car, or I'm interested in a car. That person behind the desk will hand you a clipboard and you fill out some basic information, name, address, type of car you're thinking about, whether you want to pay cash whether you want to finance it, and if you have a trade-in. It feels innocuous enough, but they get a lot of information on that clipboard. And if you write in not sure, well, it changes the nature of the negotiation. But let's just say that you said, you know what, I do want to finance this car. But then you went through the process, and about 2/3 of the way through, they want to check your credit to make sure that you're creditworthy. They're not checking your credit. They're still checking to make sure that you want to finance that car. And there are a couple of other gates along the way that you need to go through. The point is that by the time you get to the finance manager's office, you've had 2 or 3 opportunities to say, yes, I want to finance the car. The last one is that they fill out your loan application by the salesperson before you even enter the finance manager's office. So that you can see it's very hard to just say, I'm not sure, give me your best number. You can do it, but as you're going through the process, the negotiation power you have on that car becomes less and less, in many cases anyway. So what do you do in this case? Well, most car loans have a provision that allow you to prepay the loan. Now, if you don't have an origination fee and you can prepay the loan at any time, if you took out the loan today and prepaid it tomorrow, there isn't really anything the dealership could do. You need to read that paperwork very clearly to make sure that there isn't something else in there that penalizes you for prepaying that loan early. But if you go into the finance manager's office and you sign the loan paperwork and you pay off the loan the next day or the next week, you did finance the car. It wasn't for very long, but you did finance the car. But you need to know very clearly that there is no prepayment penalty or other penalties for paying that loan off early. Since you know how much money this dealership makes on you, you have the opportunity to negotiate any and all of those line items because you are a very profitable customer as long as you're taking out that loan. What that means in practicality is that you can negotiate a better purchase price on that car. Even if you get it for dealer's invoice, they're still making a lot of money on you on the front end before you walk into the finance manager's office. The first is the loan reserve. If you're actually going to finance it, well, know that most of the time, part of that loan reserve includes profit. If you actually want an extended warranty and you know that they're making between $700 and $1,000, you can negotiate that. Gap insurance, you can negotiate that. Protection and add-on products, you can negotiate that. Electronic filing and registration markups, temporary tags, digital contracting. They're not going to let you negotiate all of these. So the best thing for you to do is to look at the situation while you're in the office and determine which ones you feel are most appropriate for you. Now, when they present you with that clipboard and they ask you to fill out what you're interested in, cash, financing, trade-in, etc., one of the questions you should ask immediately is, what is the loan origination fee? They'll think that you're asking because you want to take out a loan and you don't want to pay the fee on the loan, or you're comparing it to another loan. They're not really thinking, most of the time I would think anyway, that you're asking the question so that you can make sure that if you cancel the loan the next day, you don't lose money. Also, make sure you read the loan contract carefully. Any fees that you pay should be under finance charges or loan fees. They should be listed in that contract. They need to be listed in that contract. So now you know why the sales floor, while it seems like that's where all the action is, most of the action is really in the finance manager's office. And just to close with this, make no mistake, the finance manager is the best salesperson in that building. They're not just a clerk. They're there to get you to buy all of the stuff. There's a reason they're sitting in that office instead of selling cars, because that's where the big profit is made. If you like this video, check out that video. If a car dealership does this, walk away immediately. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.